Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. I've received a lot of questions and requests over the last couple of months in regards to my Coco Shea soap bars, particularly because I did mention them, I think, in my my aromatherapy video and my natural colouring video in cold process soap making. So I think that sparked a lot of interest from those videos. And also, I think I did mention it when I was when I was doing the interview with Ellie from Ellie's Everyday. So I think people have kind of seen that being talked about a few times and have sparked a lot of interest. So I thought I'll just do a video for it. I was going to do a video today on making your own oat milk and using it in your soap recipe. But I think I'll leave that either for next weekend or the weekend after. That definitely will be my next video. But I've just received another email, a couple of emails actually, regarding this particular recipe. So I thought, right, I'm just going to go ahead and do it. It's a really popular bar of mine. I really love Coco Shea. It's just an amazing additive, especially at this high percentage. I use 70% shea butter and 30% coconut oil, and yeah, so we'll go into the recipe information and stay tuned. Right, so this is the recipe overview. I'm making a kilo batch today. It's 70% organic unrefined yellow shea butter. I source mine from a really fantastic supplier in Australia. Their name is Deluxe Shea, and I don't think I've ever used such great quality shea butter. I used to get mine from N Essentials, which is totally fine, their shea butter too, but this particular one, I think the yellow shea butter is higher quality, and I just have noticed the dramatic increase in skin feel when using this bar, compared to just the normal whitish looking shea butter. Even though it was unrefined and organic, it was still more on the white side, whereas this one is a really pungent dark yellow, and it's got a really strong odor, and it's just, you can smell the goodness in this shea butter. I just cannot recommend this shea butter enough. It is fantastic. So if you are in Australia and you're really looking to find affordable shea butter, I've provided a link in the description on where to go. Their name is Deluxe Shea. I'll just go into Google and type them up. I've actually recently bought cocoa butter from them as well, unrefined organic cocoa butter, and that's what I actually used in my previous video, in my chocolate soap making video, using the piping method. And yeah, just the aroma from the cocoa butter. I have sourced many different cocoa butters in the past, and they're all fantastic quality. I mean, there's nothing wrong with what I was getting in the past, but it's just this, they must be fresh, like it's just completely fresh batches. It just smells like it's fresh, both the shea butter and the cocoa butter from Deluxe Shea. So I'm really happy that I found them. I found them actually by accident. It was a total accident. I was just looking to see what else there is out there, and judging from my research as well, I've actually researched a lot about shea butter. The yellow shea butter is the real one that you really want to try and get, because it has the most waxy esters and unsaponifiables in it as well, and they're really great for the skin, and just other antioxidants. It's just a really big chemical composition in shea butter. It's best just to research, because the list is phenomenal and I could be here all day talking about it. But yeah, wherever you are in the world, if you can get your hands on organic unrefined yellow shea butter, definitely go for it. If you're in Australia, definitely go to Deluxe Shea. They're fantastic. I did get an email from a lady called her name is Brooke, so hello Brooke, I'm giving you a shout out. That was actually the last email I received in regards to making a video in regards to Coco Shea. So I thought, you know what, like, this is, everyone's just been asking for it. Brooke was the one that actually kind of made me go to the tipping point of like, you know what, let's see, I'm just going to make a video on it. She was saying that she got shea butter that doesn't smell quite right after you put it on. And my advice to that is always check with your supplier their expiry date or the best before date. It could very well have gone rancid if she's experiencing a foul smell, because even though shea butter does have a really pungent smell, it's not an unpleasant odor. I wouldn't say it's not an unpleasant odor. It's actually quite a nutty, earthy odor that you get from it. So I don't know why, like that particular one, she's saying that it had that smell. I would just put it down to bad batch, or maybe a rancid batch, or just not good quality. And you just got to really trial and error. Like even with the Lux Shea, when I first bought from them, I bought 1 kilo of shea butter. I didn't go for the full 5 kilos or 20 kilo blocks and, you know, buy a large quantity. I didn't I don't do that with any new supplier. I always try a small batch first before committing to a larger quantity purchase, and I always email my suppliers before I place an order, or I message them on social media, and I always ask for best before dates. And that's the same with any oil, whether it's the virgin coconut oil or RBD coconut oil that I get from Hello Pure, which is another fantastic supplier in Australia. So if you need anything coconut related, definitely go to Hello Pure. They are fantastic quality too. They're very, very great with customer service. I always email them as well as Lux Shea, and I ask for best before dates. And every time I ask for the best before dates, they do have a high turnover as well. So there's a minimum 2 years of shelf life that I receive with best before dates. Sometimes it's 1.5 years, which is totally fine because I'll use it fairly quick. I'll use it in a couple of months, so that's fine. But if for home use, I recommend minimum 1 year as well. But if you can get longer, definitely I recommend longer shelf lives, because that ensures that you're getting a much fresher batch, and obviously, you know, just won't go rancid. And if you make soap, it's going to last you, you know, definitely years in the future. And you might not use 1 kilo of shea butter or coconut oil straight away, especially if you just make soap for home use or personal use. So you investing your money and time as well into making soap, and getting that extra shelf life ensures that you have a really, really good quality bar. So my experience with the Lux Shea and Hello Pure, they always had minimum 1.5 years. At the moment, I think my cocoa butter was 3 years shelf life, best before, so I found that really excellent. The shea butter was, I think, around the 2 year mark as well. So yeah, just great quality, and this is why I would recommend anyone, you know, you always ask for what your best before dates are for your suppliers. So that email I got from Brooke saying hers didn't smell quite right, I would either put it down to rancidity in your butter, or even the quality. Just because something is labelled organic or unrefined, it doesn't mean that it's good quality. Just trial and error. You just got to buy in small quantities and try a supplier, and if you like what you experience, then obviously invest in larger quantities. So that would be my recommendation for that. I have gotten in the past actually a couple of questions regarding shea butter and an awful smell, and again, I'll put it down to quality and shelf life of the shea butter. So I thought this would be a really important topic just for me to bring up in the recipe overview. So yeah, I do a 70% shea butter, 30% coconut oil. The reason why I don't do 100% shea butter is because it's like olive oil. It does not have much of a lather. So I introduce 30% coconut oil in it, and it has a really, really nice lather. It's a really luxurious, creamy lather. I do find with Coco Shea, and it's only for a couple of minutes after you use it, it does have a slight waxy feel, and that's because shea butter is, I think, around, I'm just using my memory here, around 10% wax esters. So that's why you will get that slight waxy feeling, but that absorbs readily after a few minutes after you get out of the shower or you wash your hands, and it just makes your skin incredibly soft. I highly recommend this recipe for people that have skin conditions such as myself. I have eczema, and I have been eczema free for a few years now, and anyone that's wanting to try a recipe that is fantastic for eczema or any skin conditions, this is great for skin conditions, so definitely give this a try. You don't have to scent this at all. Just having it nice and unscented and plain will do wonders for your skin. It is absolutely magnificent recipe. This is my favorite recipe out of any recipe that I have. I know I keep going on about how fantastic shea butter is, and I think that's why Ellie from Ellie's Everyday originally thought I was a shea butter seller. She thought I was selling shea butter when I started commenting on her channel the first time. But yeah, it's just you just have to try it. Like, you just have to try it for yourself. I mean, that's the only way you can experience the shea butter difference, especially at 70%. It's really good. And I still use pink salt and sodium lactate in this recipe because shea butter by weight in a range between 7 and 15% is unsaponifiables, and it will vary between batches that you get, and even between scoops out of the same container. Like, you know, it could be 7% in one scoop, you know, by weight. You know, like, let's say, you know, each scoop is around 100 grams when you're weighing out 700 grams. Each scoop, you know, one scoop might be 7% unsaponifiables in that scoop, and the next scoop might be 10%, and the next scoop might be 12, and then it might be 7 again. So it's just a range anywhere between 7 and 15%. So that means no matter how much lye you introduce to shea butter, by weight minimum 7% will not be converted to soap. So shea butter does have an innate inbuilt superfat built in naturally. So this is why you can do 5% superfat, which I have done in the past, and there's nothing wrong with it. The only thing is it is more on the softer side. So if you do want it to last, I recommend 3%. So you would definitely, with 3% superfat, you'll definitely be getting a 10% minimum. So I don't see why you would go to 5 anyway, because you are getting a really high superfat at 3% anyway. So adding the pink salt and the sodium lactate at 1.2% again just helps keep the bar hard and increase longevity. Otherwise, it does kind of melt away like 100% olive oil soap. So that's why it's really important to use the 30% coconut oil and the pink salt and the sodium lactate, and using it at when you're formulating a recipe at 3% superfat. So that's the reasoning why behind I use those combinations for this recipe. So these particular bars I will be scenting with sweet orange and cinnamon essential oils, and these are the percentage ratios based on the oil weight. It's 2.5% or 25 grams of sweet orange tenfold. And again, as mentioned previously, I use tenfold because it doesn't flash off as easily as normal orange essential oil does. So this really does last in your soap recipe. The 1% or 10 grams of cedarwood atlas, that's to fix it as well, and 0.3% of cinnamon bark. And the reason why I am covering the essential oil blend for this particular one is because I have seen people sharing recipe information they have gotten either from the internet or from books. And by all means, I know I don't mind saying this out loud because I think it's a really important topic that people really need to understand, is just because something is published in a book does not mean it's accurate, and does not mean that you should take it as gospel. You should always do your research with dermal limits. It is very dangerous using essential oils outside of dermal limits, especially if you are planning to sell your soaps. and I am referring to cinnamon bark. Cinnamon bark actually has a dermal limit of 0.07. That's less than 1%. That is less than 0.5%. It's actually less than 0.1%. It is very, very small percentage amount of cinnamon you can actually use even when diluted on the skin, because it does cause irritation. It can cause rash. You can overdose on cinnamon as well. It actually can increase the heart rate. And this is the same with peppermint as well. So with peppermint, and the reason why I'm bringing up peppermint, because it's got to do with stimulating the heart rate, and I think peppermint, the dermal limit for peppermint is 5%, but from my research alone, you can't always just go by dermal limits. That's just like the maximum you can use before you start to see, skin irritation or rashes occur. But if you look at the chemical composition of certain essential oils, and the effect it has on the body, and as a qualified aromatherapist advice would give you, I wouldn't recommend, in cold process soap making anyway, I wouldn't recommend going above 2.5% peppermint, even if you do fix it with cedarwood atlas, because obviously some of it will be lost. Even if you do fix it with bases, there is a small percentage of essential oils that will flash off when it's saponifying and curing. So yeah, 2.5% for peppermint, and definitely I would not go above 0.3% cinnamon bark. So that's 3 grams of cinnamon bark in this recipe. And I've seen some recipes recommend 20 grams, 25 grams, and 30 grams, even in published books for soap making. And that is very, very bad. I was actually quite shocked. I did not realize that this cinnamon was recommended at such large doses, and this is why it's really important. And just like I've urged people in my aromatherapy video, you always research dermal limits. There is plenty of information out there, and especially with spices, with cinnamon and other herbs and spices, they have really high potential to irritate. So this is why it's really important to look at dermal limits. I know cedarwood's safe. Cedarwood, I think, has a dermal limit. From the top of my head, I think it's 20% actually. Not that you would ever use 20%, but that's just to show that it's up to 20%, and it's the same for orange as well. I think orange might be a bit higher, might be around the 25% mark, but again, you wouldn't use 25% or 20% in your recipe. As you can see, it's 2.5% sweet orange and 1% cedarwood. And for cinnamon bark, even though I have gone above the 0.07% cinnamon bark, that's the dermal limit, I have gone to 0.3, which is more than double, because, well, actually more than, it's about triple the amount. And the reason for that, because I know that 0.3% won't be in the finished product, because you've got to remember all essential oils, no matter if it's a base, middle or top note, there is always going to be a small percentage loss. So I know that it won't be 3 grams in the finished product. And also, this is a wash-off product, so it's not a product that you leave on your skin. So if it's for something that I'm applying directly on the skin, like an essential oil blend, I would not do 0.3%. I would work in 0.07%. So I would work in actual strict dermal limits for leave-on, but for rinse-off you can go just a little bit higher, and this is just a little bit higher. But if you want to compare 0.3 grams to 3%, which is 30 grams versus 3 grams, that is a huge difference. And this is why I just wanted to cover it in this video, because I love cinnamon smell and cinnamon bark essential oil, but I know that it can be very, very highly irritating. I've even in the past gotten just a couple of drops of cinnamon by accident when I'm mixing essential oils, some splashed on my arm, and I thought nothing of it. I just wiped it off with a tissue. I didn't even wash it. I should have, but I noticed within a couple of minutes it started to burn, and it really irritated my skin. So I just from that experience, I know not to put 30 grams of cinnamon bark into my recipe. That's just highly dangerous. Yeah, so this is why I just could not recommend enough, no matter what you read in books, even advice I give. That's why I always recommend, no matter what advice you receive, you always do your own research. So now that we've covered the important bit, this is the important bit I really wanted to cover in this video. We can move on to the actual soap making. Right, so I'm actually going to be talking while I'm doing this. This is the first time I've done this, and usually I don't do this because it's really noisy here at home, but it's actually really quiet here today because I'm on my own today. So I thought I would just talk. I'll just talk while I'm making the soap, and it'll save me from doing the voiceovers as well. So in this pot here, I've melted on really low heat. It took about half an hour to fully melt, and shea butter does have a really high melt point, so I do not use the heat transfer method for this. So I put everything in here. So it's got the shea butter, the coconut oil, the sodium lactate, the gold resilient clay, and the white clay. So I just put everything in here because I'm not doing split colouring. It does trace quite fast, so I have to work fairly quickly. You don't want to let shea butter go below a certain temperature because it'll start to re-solidify. So at the moment it's 46 degrees Celsius and my lime water is 36 degrees Celsius. So I will combine them now together. I'll just grab my essential oil blend. That's the essential oil blend. Cinnamon, sweet orange and cedarwood. Beautiful, beautiful combination. Right. So I always, in my water, this is my lime water, I always dissolve pink salt and sugar in the water first, or as much as I can dissolve, and then I add the lye after. So this is always got, and I've had a lot of questions when I add it. Before I add my lye, I dissolve the pink salt and the sugar in my water, and then I add the lye. Let's just scoop it all out. You don't have to get every last drop out, but as long as most of it's in there, which is fine. And that goes in there. So after about 30 seconds of blending, you'll notice that it starts to get thicker and thicker, and then I add my essential oils as quick as I can, and then I pour it in the mold. So that's sitting at 45 at the moment. That will easily rise up to, during the saponification process, it does get, it can get over 50 degrees. I've seen it even go up to 60. So don't be alarmed if it does. I don't want to over blend right now because I know it will trace quite fast. This high percentage of shea butter is notorious for tracing really quick. I've definitely learned that the hard way over the years. So I'm just slowly, and then I can really feel it with my stick blender, even though it's not had a trace yet, but I can feel it really thickening up. So just work really slow on blending and pulsing. And quick. And because it is quite shallow, I do tip it on the side when I blend. Yes, it's like not a trace yet, but I reckon if I blend just any more, it might go to a light trace. And I'm actually going to stop there with the blending, because like I said, from experience, I know it will just firm up incredibly fast. So I'm going to move to a whisk now. And I will whisk the essential oil in and just make sure in my head as well that because I always make sure that it's all emulsified properly. But I've made this batch so many times, like this recipe that I know that it's fine. But I think it's a psychological thing. You just want to make sure that it's all mixed in properly. And definitely it's a psychological thing for me. I'm like, oh, it just doesn't feel mixed in enough. And I think that's normal with no matter how many times you've made soap. That thought always crosses my mind one way or another. Let's see. So it is at a very, very light trace, very light, like it's staying and then it disappears back in. So you just that's why I don't do split colouring, because it's a bit of a headache with 70% shea butter. So I just leave them one colour. That's the same for my other variant I have of this. It's sweet orange and patchouli. I don't do split colouring. I do gold clay just like this, but I put a little bit of red Australian clay in it, and it gives it that nice red colour. And for this, it's Brazilian gold clay with white clay. So that's just that white clay is just to fill a gap, to anchor in the essential oil, and it won't change the colour of the gold whatsoever. White kaolin clay is very neutral in cold process soap bases, so it won't alter colour, any other colour you mix with it. So that's why I do the filler gap. I always do white clay as a filler gap in all my recipes. Whether I'm using ultramarine blue, or like this red gold clay or purple clay or red clay, especially red clay as well. Use at very low percentages, usually at 0.2 or 0.3% for your oil weight, and then 27 or 28% you do the white clay filler, and it doesn't alter the red clay color whatsoever. So this is the same for this as well. The white clay definitely does not alter or change the gold clay. So it's a beautiful, nice gold shimmering color when it's cut and fully cured. So as you've seen in the past as well, I've shown that bar a few times, I think, in my videos, and also there's pictures of it available on my website. And of course, at the end of the video, I will provide some pictures of a previous batch as well, and I'll do a lather test as well, just to show you how beautiful the lather is. So I know people getting questions, they've been asking, I've been getting questions about, I'm not sure if, 70% shea, 30% coconut oil will actually produce a lather, because I've seen some videos where people are doing 100% shea butter and it's not really a lather, it's more creamy like olive oil is. And it just seems to be the main question I get all the time as well. I'm a bit hesitant to try, or I'm not sure about the lather or whatever, but it's a beautiful lather. So we've reached a light trace, just a very light trace, which is fine. If we were to use a stick blender, you would be trying to scoop this into a mold right now. So it's really important just to move to a whisk after emulsification. Again, I'll just mix for another minute just to make sure everything's mixed in together. It's totally fine. It's all incorporated, beautiful, and I can smell it. It smells beautiful. I love this combination. Sweet orange and cinnamon is beautiful. Sweet orange and turmeric is also really nice. Really, really nice. I think I actually might make a variation of this Coco Shea with sweet orange and cinnamon. Sweet orange and cinnamon. That's what I'm making now. I mean, sweet orange and turmeric. It's just such a beautiful combination. Really spicy, and it just creates a different tone of smell, like of scent, and it doesn't smell similar to this whatsoever. It's got its own unique characteristics, and even though it's like, it's sweet orange everywhere, but it really does not It really does. It is different. Like, it's the finished product is totally different, even though sweet orange is one of the main ingredients in the recipe. Same with my sweet orange and patchouli as well. It's just a totally different smell from this, you know, even though it's still got a lot of sweet orange in it. Yes, sweet orange and turmeric is beautiful. Really, really good. I love it. And this is actually a light trace. It's actually a medium, going to a medium trace now. Yeah, it's a medium trace. So if you were to use a blender, you would have run into problems already. And so I'm right-handed, so I tried my best not to cover the camera. And I'm still getting used to this different position. So as you've noticed, I've moved my soaping room around a bit because I had to make room for my log splitter and my slab molds as well before they weren't fitting on this bench, and the way I had it positioned as well, so I had to really change the positioning of everything. So that's why you see me a bit awkward in my last few videos, because I'm still getting used to moving around this type of setup. Oh gosh. Yep, so even with this recipe, I highly recommend a water discount as well. It just speeds up curing, it increases hardness overall, and you can unmold it quicker as well, you know, because my salt and sodium lactate I use in all my recipes. But yeah, definitely don't be afraid to water discount. Even I recommend it for beginners, but if you are worried, once again, you don't have to water discount that heavily. But from the feedback I've been getting from viewers that have been trying my recipes exactly the way they've stated, with all the water discounting and all that, I'm getting really positive feedback saying it's magnificent. Thanks for, you know, sharing your knowledge. And yeah, like once you water discount and you work with sodium lactate and salt, and you know you're comfortable in giving it a try, you just won't go back. I've never, in the last 2 years now, have never used more than 25% in any of my recipes. Even as you see, when I make 100% coconut oil soaps, I still do 25%. Even with this recipe, Coco Shea, 25%. And I think my second last video was the Bastille soap, or / Castile soap, whereas 90% olive oil. I even went lower, and I went to 22%. I have contemplated going for 22% for all my recipes in the past, but I'm just quite comfortable at 25%. It works really well, and I don't have issues with it. So that saying, don't fix what ain't broke, this is definitely one of those things. I just won't fix what's not broke. So I'm happy to keep it at 25%. Just clean it up, and I do make a mess sometimes. And I remember someone commented on my video, oh, you know, such a clean, poor professional, you don't make a mess. I'm like, that was just really lucky that I didn't make a mess. And I do make a mess because I use, obviously, I like to minimize my plastic use. I just don't like the thought of my soap going in plastic, like when I'm, mixing it. And even though it would be easier to pour, it won't be any mess like I'm making now, I just don't like it. I just like using stainless steel for everything, glass and stainless steel. Again, that's just my mind. That's just where my mind goes, and I just like to stick with using, I think it's thick enough now to, yeah, so I just like using glass and stainless steel. So that's not quite ready to texture yet. So this will be ready to cut, and it is fairly cold here. It's, I think, around 17, yeah, it's actually ready to texture. It's around 17 degrees Celsius here in Sydney. And Yeah, so this definitely will be ready in about 4 hours. So it's about 1 o'clock here in the afternoon. And it will be ready by, I would say, maybe less than 4 hours. We'll see. Just depends. And I like to keep my Coco Shea bars as simple as possible. It's just like a nice clean look, so I don't do extravagant, colouring or textures on top. I just leave it nice and simple. That's the way I like it. And yes, we will come back when this is ready to cut. Right, welcome back. It's been about 4 hours. And there's 2 ways. So I thought I'll just talk as I do it, because I haven't really gone into much detail in the past in regards to when I actually cut it and how I determine it's ready to cut. So how I determine it's ready to cut, if it slides out, see how it just slides out really, really easily. So that's method 1. So there you go. That's that. Method 2 is temperature. So if it's under 4, like generally I like it to be lower 30s, like, and definitely under 40. So if you see he's at 36 degrees, 31 degrees. So it just depends. It's going to be in a range, never going to be the same all the way through. But on one side it's 32 or 31, and the other side it's 33. So if it's around the early 30s, I'm comfortable in unmolding it and cutting it. So it's still warm, like it's still warm, but I've just done it this way so many times. I've just gotten used to knowing when it's okay and when it's ready to cut. So this will be, you can see, like it's still nice and firm enough to, when you pull it off, it's not going to, damage the soap at all. Right, so seems okay. To unmold now. Yes, definitely. Alright, so no matter what, sometimes the edges do come off, even if you leave them for an hour longer or whatever, even though it's still nice to cut, like it's still hard enough to cut, sometimes it can do that at the end, but I slice the end off anyway, so that's fine. That's just an off-cut sample that you can use, so it's not a big deal. Perfect, so that fixes that end bit problem as well. I need some of this to, oops, there. Right. Beautiful. Ah, it just smells so good. So that's what it looks like. Very, very nice, very shimmery. That's why I love the gold clay, or just Brazilian clays. Like they just provide a shimmer. Like it's just really, really, really nice. I love the color, how it turns out. And I think with this particular recipe, because orange tenfold is really dark, and I think it adds that extra nice color to it as well. It's just a really dark essential oil. And of course, cedarwood is a dark essential oil too. So you've got 2 factors of, 2 essential oils you're putting together that are dark, and even the cinnamon. So pretty much every essential oil that goes in here is dark. Oh, very nice. So I cut these at 1 inch or 2.54 centimeters by those that are gone by the metric system. And of course I'm in Australia, so I go by the metric system. So yeah, it's really, really nice. They turned out really good. Very happy with the result. Coco Shea bars are just a staple now that I make and I sell, and also using at home as well. I use them all the time. Love the way it feels. Makes my skin feel extra hydrated. It's just really gentle overall. I just love the smell. Cinnamon essential oil is just really different from synthetic cinnamon smells. This is just like, it's just got a beautiful, it's like a, I don't know, it's just like sweet. It's really sweet and really nice, like just beautiful. If you haven't smelled cinnamon bark essential oil, I highly recommend you get one. You don't need to go overboard with cinnamon. Like as mentioned before, it does have a very low dermal limit. So a 100ml bottle will definitely make many bars, and not just of this recipe, whatever other recipe you decide to add just a little bit of cinnamon in. The 100ml bottles really go a long way because you need such a low amount. And they really do stick. Like, this is only 3 grams cinnamon in this whole recipe, but the cinnamon is so pungent. And of course, because I fix it as well with clays and cedarwood atlas. But yeah, it comes through really strong. It's very nice. So definitely definitely 100ml goes the distance. Like you don't need to get anything bigger than that. So that's for sure. So I only use 100. I only buy 100ml bottles of cinnamon. Other essential oils, obviously, I'll get by the kilos or the 5 kilos because I use so much of it. But cinnamon you don't really need to go overboard. So if you don't have cinnamon around and you've got a supplier, don't go and invest in a really big bottle. A 30ml or 50ml or 100ml bottle, it will suit just fine. And I think cinnamon's fairly inexpensive. I know 100ml here in Australia, I get mine from New Directions. I think it's $23 for 100ml. And I think the size below 100ml, they sell 17ml. And I think that's like $5 or $4 or something. It's just really inexpensive. So I'm pretty sure the prices around the world would be roughly the same. It shouldn't be, like whether the States or in Europe or UK or wherever you might be. I think India produces a lot of cinnamon essential oil as well, so I think should be relatively inexpensive if from India or from Pakistan. So it's a really inexpensive essential oil to get because of the low amount you need in your recipe. So just as a thing, I always weigh my bars because I do sell them. So that's 148 grams. So when it cures, it'll be around the 140, 138 gram mark. Sometimes you do get an offcut that's quite smaller. This is a smaller one I noticed at the end. Sometimes, even with a cutter cutting accurately, I find, every 5 batches or 6 batches, I might be one smaller. So what I do with the one that's 136 grams. So I wouldn't want to sell that and label it as 140 grams because when this is cured, this will definitely weigh under 130. So I don't want to be deceiving when I sell my soaps. So that's 140. Well, that was 148. And what's this one? This is 148.23. So I'm comfortable in wrapping these and selling them at retail. 149. And that's 148 as well. So this is just something like a standard I do all the time. That's 147.25. So that's fine. So what I usually do with the ones that weigh less, like this one, either I'll be greedy and use it myself, or I'll give it away as a sample, or there's a local cafe near my house, Laziza. I'm sure you've heard me mention Laziza a few times. I'll just wrap it up and then I'll put it for sale there, at a discounted price, usually by $2 or $3, just to make back, the cost price for that bar. But yeah, so I always weigh my bars just on average. That's 150 grams. Yeah, and I'm not sure what makes. I think it also depends. Like, no matter what cutter I've used, the first slice is the most important one, because sometimes if you that's why I tend to push the back here when I'm cutting, because I find if I push from the front, it shifts it slightly. So at the end, by the time you get to the end of the log, you will get a slightly smaller bar. But I've actually just recently bought even bigger slab molds, and they are the right size. Whereas, these, I thought I'll mention that because it's really important. So these are the 1.2 kilo log molds that you see everywhere, and they're great, but they're just slightly, just like by half a centimetre or less, smaller than what they theoretically should be to get an even 10 bars with 2 offcuts on the side. So that's why I always on one side, when I unmold the log, I always do it from one side. So if it chips on this side, where I'm actually unmolding it and taking it off, I just do 1 offcut, so then there's enough for 10 at 1 inch. But with the slab molds, even the video I've done about when I was using the slab mold for the first time, I found that there was no shortages, like it was just right, like the dimensions of it. And the one I'll be getting in the mail hopefully sometime next week, that's even bigger. It's actually double the size. I should be able to get a good 60 bars of soap without having any, smaller ones at the end. So when I make these, let's say out of 10 loaves, I might get 2 loaves with slightly smaller ones. So that's just something to bear in mind if you do make like larger quantities, like 5, 6, 7 or 8, and then you do find, the first 3 or 4 loaves I did, I got an even 10 out of it, but now I got like 9.5 out of it, or whatever you happen to get out of it. So that's just something I thought I'd mention, and I'm sure people will find it useful, because these are really popular. I see them everywhere, like no matter where you are in the world, these ones seem to be the ones that everyone uses, or something similar to that. So I thought I'll just point that out. I will do a lather test now for ones that have cured and are ready to go. I'm just going to do a lather test with one I've just started to use a couple of days ago. So I'll do that lather test for you so you can have a look at how it performs. Right, so we're back to do a lather test. Just fill this up with some water. And I just absolutely love the lather of Coco Shea, and just the skin feel, like it's just got an amazing skin feel. As you can see, it's got a great lather. So that 30% coconut oil really does add that really, it's just so creamy. I don't know if you can see it on the camera, but it's just got that really creaminess lather, like it's just so conditioning and just really soothing. It's beautiful. Like this is my I use that also. I have another one that I use to wash my hands with daily, so whenever I just have to wash my hands, I use it, and as you can see, it just does not dry skin out. Not that any of my recipes dry skin out, but if you've just got skin that is prone to being prone to dry out anyway, this recipe is just incredible. Same with the Bastille or Castile soap recipe that I shared a couple of weeks ago with the 90% olive oil. that also has a really, really nice creamy lather. And it's got a very similar lather to this, not as luxurious lather as this because it did only have 5% coconut oil and 5% castor, but definitely an improvement over 100% olive oil. Like, it's just really, really good. Yeah, so I thought you'd like to see how the Coco Shea bar performs. Beautiful bar. And definitely leaves your skin nice and soft. And as we were talking about before, I just, obviously I can smell the cinnamon, beautiful, but I just couldn't imagine like using a bar of soap with 2 or 3% cinnamon in it. That would just be not only incredibly overpowering, but as mentioned before, it'll irritate your skin like hell. I just don't understand, who would think that's okay. And you've got to be really careful because I always refer, even in my aromatherapy video, I always refer to essential oils as plant medicine, and for a very good reason. You should treat it just like any other drug that you happen to use, whether it's alcohol, whether it's any prescription drugs, or even to those naughty people that use recreational drugs. It's the same thing. Like, you got to be careful and you got to be mindful, especially with people that have health issues. Like I was saying before, peppermint and cinnamon are very well known in the aromatherapy world when you're an aromatherapist to increase heart rate. And it's not suitable for anyone under 16 as well. So this recipe, if you were to use cinnamon, 16 plus only, you don't use it on anyone under 16. And anyone that has heart failure, high blood pressure, heart issues, cholesterol, high cholesterol, should be avoiding any essential oil that increases heart rate. So this can potentially be fatal, or it could land someone in hospital. So this is why it's really important to understand what you're working with, not just follow recipes blindly, and always research each input and the effects that it might have on people that are ill, or dermal limits, or the chemical compositions. And this is why this is why this video is kind of lengthy, because I really wanted to tackle the questions that I've been getting and the recipes that have been shared to me. How do you think this recipe will perform? Or have you tried this recipe? Or do you know this author? I'm not going to name anybody author-wise or anything, but I just, openly say that you always research dermal limits. I did happen to read more since doing the recipe overview at the beginning of the video, and I stand corrected with cinnamon, so it's still a very low dermal limit. It's actually lower than I initially thought. I said 0.07, but it's actually 0.05% with a dermal maximum. So the dermal limit is 0.05, meaning work underneath that range, and a dermal maximum is 0.7%, which is, it's more likely to have irritation potential at 0.7, but try and work under the dermal limit. So that's like the absolute maximum. Absolute maximum doesn't mean safe still, so that's why you've got to really educate yourself on aromatherapy practices. So even under 0.7, I actually did 0.3, so I'm well under the dermal maximum. I am above the dermal limit, but again, as I stated before, some of it is lost in the saponification process, the reaction that happens in the next 48 to 72 hours, and the curing time 3 to 4 weeks. So that 0.3% I used isn't going to be there 100%. It obviously will scale back, and I've used this soap on my face, on my head, on my body, on my hands, and I've never gotten any irritation from it. It's quite great. It's very, very nice. It smells very nice. This one was actually made, I think, was made probably, let me think, maybe 8 weeks ago, this particular batch that I got it from. And yeah, and it's still very, very strong smell, very, very strong. So definitely I would not recommend over 0.7 and highly not recommend over 0.3 for cold presses soap making. And just be mindful once again, because I find myself having to write the same response to emails and comments, or people sharing their recipe information that they've gotten from someone else, or a book, or Pinterest, or wherever they've gotten it from, that you always should research what you're putting in, especially essential oils, and things that are published in books aren't gospel, and it's important to know what you're putting on your skin. And even though essential oils are natural and I love them and I stand by them, they are still something you work with cautiously, in the sense of knowing the chemical compositions of them and how they affect the body. That's why I refer to soap making, cold press soap making, and aromatherapy as an art form, because it's not just something you throw together. It's something you've got to understand the whole process behind, and especially with essential oils, considering that they are very, very concentrated. They're not like fragrance oils. And I urge everyone to do their own research. So I just cannot stress that enough. Right, so we reached the end of the video. Thanks so much for sticking around. I just thought I was just going to do this video as a Coco Shea tutorial type thing, but I really wanted to get in depth of dermal limits again, and I thought I would talk throughout the Coco Shea process, as this is such a highly requested video for me to do. So I thought I will actually just talk as I'm going through it, and cover really important topics. So I hope you enjoy the video. Don't forget to share and like this video and subscribe to my channel. Head on over to Instagram and Facebook and follow me there. Also, if you do give this recipe a try, I'd love to see the results, so just DM me through Instagram. And I really appreciate, once again, all the comments and the positive feedback I've been getting. Next video definitely will be not as long as this one. It'll definitely be under 20 minutes, and I'll be going through the whole process of creating oat milk and freezing it, and using the ice method, and adding a luxurious creamy lather to your soap recipe. Oat milk is a fantastic additive. I do a double oat, as I call it. I do the double oat soap bars, which is, I use obviously the oat milk for the water phase, and I use the leftover oats as exfoliants, so it's like a zero waste type recipe as well. And I add that into the soft oils after I do the heat transfer method for the coconut oil, and that's just there for a nice gentle exfoliation. So that will be in my next video, probably this time next week. That's when it'll be up. I usually try and keep it around the weekend or Monday period in Australia. That's when I try and do a video, so stay tuned for that. And until next time, happy soaping and safe soaping, working with dermal limits. And until next time, take care and bye for now.